live from Sister Basebone Studio. Urban Teachers Lounge is a platform for bridging the gap between educational scholarship and classroom teachers. Voices will include teachers, administrators, educational scholars, community members, and activists.
Hey everybody, welcome to Urban Teachers Lounge. I'm your host, G. Funmilayo DeVoe. This podcast is unapologetically for Black teachers, unapologetically by Black teachers. The purpose of the program is to bridge the gap between educational scholarship and classroom teachers. This week, I got a treat for you. Power of the teacher's story. That's what we're talking about. The power of the teacher's story. So, go grab your cup of coffee. Let's get ready to talk. All right. First of all, let me say I'm glad to be back, right? So, in Atlanta last week we had spring break, and I had much to talk about, but I decided I was going to fall back and not do a podcast, go ahead and enjoy my spring break fully. I think the problem with that is because I read so much and I had so much juice to talk about, it became a little complicated on what I was going to present to you today. So today I'm going to be talking directly from the main book is called Investigating the Teacher's Life and Work by Ivor Goodson. And then, of course, I'll make references back to a book that I talk about often, Michelle Foster's Black Teachers on Teaching. So as you know, I am currently working on my PhD. I am getting closer to a dissertation, and much of the research that I present on this podcast is getting me to the dissertation. So the research is very fresh, if you will, relevant, definitely, but the research is specifically in line with where I want to go with my dissertation. So if you don't know, my dissertation is around Black teacher displacement and gentrification. So with that, a lot of the research that I'm doing, I'm stacking the deck, right? And so this podcast or this episode, I really want to look at the method that I'm going to use to do this dissertation. The method is called Life Histories. And within that, you deal with not only the story, the teacher's story, but you deal with this teacher's story within the context of social, the society, political, social context, right? And you also look at it as historically. So let's get back to the point of this. So number one, I want you to think about these three phrases. Teachers as semi-professionals. How did that rub you? Teachers as semi-professionals, number one. Number two, I want you to think about the deprofessionalizing of teachers or the deprofessionalized teacher, right? So you should get a pattern here. And then I found another one, domesticating the teacher. Okay, so we can stop right there with those three. So when I read these three in this book, basically Investigating the Teacher's Life, I was angry, right? Because how dare you deprofessionalize what I do? I've spent a career. I'm not too far from 20 years as a teacher, educator, and the wording of deprofessionalizing or semi-professional or domesticating me is a problem. But it also gave me wording to understand why I'm frustrated. and why teachers are leaving the profession, and more specifically, why Black teachers are leaving the profession. So I wanted to talk about how it is, how teachers are perceived outside of, we deal with problems with students, problems with administration, problems with parents. We deal with community issues. We deal with the politics, bureaucracies. We deal with, and everything that teachers deal with comes from, a lot of it comes from the outside. So we're literally, things are handed down to us. Okay, so it's, let's think, the first quote that I want to start with is, it goes with these vocabulary terms that I gave you. So the first quote says, within the educational community, the image of teachers as semi-professionals who lack control and autonomy over their own work, and as persons who do not contribute to the creation of knowledge, has permeated and congealed the whole educational enterprise. I need you to think about that. So here is how we are being judged as teachers. We don't contribute to our to the academy, really, to knowledge. We're not providing the knowledge base of what teachers do, what makes good teachers. We're given that information by people that may or may not know what we do, right? But I think it was interesting. It says, who lack control and autonomy over their work. When I started teaching in 2001, No Child Left Behind came upon us, right? Within that was the thing called highly qualified teachers. So when I came in, this is my second career. When I came into teaching, highly qualified meant you had experience, either working, previous career experience, but also it meant that you went to school, you took all kinds of classes, you had all kinds of professional development trainings, right? Okay, highly qualified. How many teachers do you know right now that have a master's, have a specialist degree, is working on a PhD, an EDD? This is highly qualified. Yet, highly qualified teachers, according to this definition, lack control and autonomy over their work. Woo! Now let me get ugly. There are people that I've heard of. This is what I heard. There are teachers that go into classrooms daily that are given scripted curriculums. Come on now. I had to shake that thing off. That are given scripted curriculums to teach children. And then here's where the problem comes in. You want teachers to be critical thinkers. That's the highly qualified teacher piece, right? You want me to differentiate my instruction, right? That's, again, the highly qualified teacher piece. So how can I differentiate my instruction if you then give me a scripted, this is what I heard, you give me a scripted curriculum and say, teach this. So that means on Monday at 10 o'clock, a teacher should be saying this. That is not autonomy. Because autonomy says I can look at my students. I know where they are. I've done the pre-test, the post-test, the in-between test. I've worked with them. I've built a relationship with them. I know where they are. Then I can take them to their next level. That's growth. We're not even going to talk about that right now. But the fact that the outside world, meaning anybody that is not a part of the classroom, the educational process, the fact that you think that I do not control, which I don't, and I don't have autonomy, but you might think that I don't control and have autonomy by choice. Okay. So I just want you to think about that particular quote. Within the educational community, the image of teachers as semi-professionals who lack control and autonomy over their own work, and as persons who do not contribute to the creation of knowledge. How often have you heard of a teacher creating a curriculum that is relevant for the students that they teach? Okay, come on now. Come on, follow with me. Creation of knowledge has permeated and congealed the whole educational, here's the key word, enterprise. Okay, stop. Full stop. Let me give you something else. According to this book, I love this book. Oh my God. So according to the book, it says the work of teachers is politically and socially constructed. Now, if you think about that, how true is that? It is true. Because whatever curriculum comes out, whatever new thing comes out, no matter how good or bad it is, no matter how relevant it is, culturally relevant, no matter what, who controlled that? The work of teachers is politically and socially constructed. So let's go to another quote that goes with that one. Because it was so much, I had to just really break this down to 1, 2, and 3. So quote number 2 says this: the forces of the market, as articulated by the politicians, is seeking to turn the teacher's practice into that of a technician, a routinized and trivialized deliverer of a pre-designed package. Is that what I just told you? When we're now thinking that by giving teachers a scripted curriculum, teachers don't have autonomy to do what they need to do to get our kids to where they need to be. And I'm pausing because I want you to really think about how that's working out. It's not. And if we continue to live by test scores, everything is driven by test scores. Everything is driven by outcomes. Outcomes are great, but outcomes can really be trivialized, right? So with an outcome, all you're telling me is, according to the numbers, you didn't do this. But you also just said that the forces of the market, as articulated by who? Politicians. We just now said teachers do not have the autonomy to create knowledge. But we do. We just don't know that we do. I didn't know that we do until I went into this program, right? I didn't know how powerful my voice is until I went into this program. Okay, so number 3, the next thing that they talked about in this, and to think about, I want you to think about, is called curriculum as prescription. Curriculum as prescription. So the quote with that says, curriculum as prescription supports the mystique that expertise and control, there's a word, reside within central governments, educational bureaucracies, or the university community, providing nobody exposes this mystique. The 2 words of prescriptive rhetoric and schooling as practice can coexist. Both sides benefit from such peaceful coexistence. The agencies of curriculum as prescription are seen to be, quote unquote, in control, and the schools are seen to be, quote unquote, delivering out a good degree of autonomy if they accept the rules. So if you use curriculum as a prescription, If we use this curriculum, this is going to fix the problem. Now let's go deep, because this is unapologetically for Black teachers, unapologetically by Black teachers, and I'm unapologetically talking about my Black students. Hello. So if you give me a prescription and say, Gina, give this kid, I want you to teach this, you have not acknowledged the student, where they are, where they come from. That's called cultural relevant, cultural pedagogy. You have not considered them as a human. You just have considered them as a number, a computer, a robot, somebody that you input information and they're going to output information to you. So curriculum as prescription. Now again, how does this affect Black schools, Black teachers? So as a Black teacher, we then fight, some of us, there are ranges on where Black teachers land on this spectrum. Some of us are beyond frustrated. Some of us just straight quit. Some of us fight and are considered militant or considered, disruptive. Well, we should be disrupting things that are not for our kids. If we're not advocating for our students, if we're not teaching, if we're not differentiating, if we're not doing the things that we know to do, then what exactly are we doing it for? Oh, I know, for outcomes. Okay. So in thinking about this, this was just a very good reading that I had. So this, I'm looking at specifically the introduction. No, I was actually looking at chapter 1 in the book. It's called Investigating the Life and Work of Teachers. And the writer, Ivor Goodson, who is also the writer of the entire book, but this particular chapter, he wrote it. And he's really laying down some information that resonated so well with me. What I know is we don't always have the vocabulary. We don't have the language to articulate. A friend of mine who is a scholar as well, she's in my program, she did a talk the other day, and she talked about too often we don't have the language to articulate what is going on. And so oftentimes all you see from the outside looking in is low performing schools. Students are not learning. Teachers are not teaching. But you're not looking at the fullness thereof. Why is this happening? And then we blame it on, we have these little Band-Aid realities. Oh, they're low performing because they're socioeconomics, right? They're minorities. They're at risk. So just being Black and living in the hood makes you at risk. And I'm sorry, we came from slaves, right? So-called. Actually, we came from kings and queens. But I'm just saying, in this country, we were enslaved, and yet we managed to learn how to read, be scholars, be more than an athlete, more than a rapper, right? I got to throw that in there. Yet you're saying that because of our location and our position in society, we're already at risk. So I'm putting this out there because we need to really think about, one, as teachers, we have a voice. Not only do we have a voice when we teach our students, we have a voice that needs to be heard. We have a voice that needs to be in the knowledge pool, right? Okay, so now let's think about what needs to happen at this point. So we understand the politics of it all. We understand how it's perceived. What do we need to do? And this was the whole point of the podcast, me creating Urban Teachers Lounge, to give us a voice, right? To speak, to say what is really going on. Why are we being handed down curriculums that probably don't work? But we are being mandated to do the work. Oh, I know. because there's a transition between professionalism, being a professional, highly qualified professional, to you want an educational worker. That means somebody that you just give a curriculum to, or you give rules and regulations. You need to do this, check boxes, box checking jobs, right? And then you expect some outcomes. Doesn't make sense. So what needs to happen? Two things, I think. One, teachers need to talk. Teacher voices need to be heard. So the next quote, I got another one for you, right? You know, I have to give you these quotes because sometimes I don't want it to appear that I am all in my head without having some research, that goes with this. So our voice is important. There are things that we need to understand that teachers go through, not just because of location, but because of social context, political context, historical context, right? So this quote says, the notion, this is why I need your voice. This is why I need some of you folks to call in and say, hey, I want to share my story. Right? Because it's necessary. And this is what the platform is for. So the quote says, the notion of the teacher's voice is important in that it carries the tone, the language, the quality, the feelings that are conveyed by the way a teacher speaks or writes. In a political sense, the notion of the teacher's voice addresses the right to speak and be represented. We're not being represented and we're not being able to speak if we are handed curriculums, if we don't have autonomy, and if we're not trusted as professionals. The fact that you already label me as a semi-professional means that you don't trust my ability, my highly qualified status, right? Okay. And then it further says it can represent both the unique individual and the collective voice, one that is characterized or characteristic of teachers as compared to other groups. So this leads me to, and I think I started here, life history. The point of using life history as a method, you're not only telling your story. Black people are storytellers by nature. This is how we came here. We're oral historians. This is why I'm doing a podcast. This is talking. This is what we do, right? Not only are we telling our story as a Black teacher in the Black school with Black children, that's probably low performing. That's probably, Title I and all these other urban realities that we like to use, right? But we're also looking at these stories through the lens of what is the political landscape today? What is the historical landscape that we keep shifting from? Where do we see, like where we are today? Where was that back in history? Politically, what's the political landscape? So you're not only looking at the teacher's story, I'm not only looking at the teacher's experience, but I want to look at it through the lens of within the context of society, politics, history, right? Okay. So you got to tell your story, and you have to tell the story in the context. So let's give an example. Coming in as a teacher, if you teach in an urban school, the school is already stigmatized. That means that students are stigmatized, the teachers are stigmatized, the administration is stigmatized. That means that the community is stigmatized. So you already come in with, as they call it, a deficit thinking, or the perception of that there's already a deficit because you're working at an urban school. You tell somebody right now that you work at a certain school, and they're like, ooh, it's rough. Ooh, hold up. Oh, they don't do, wait up, hold up. Don't do me. Don't do me. So you already go in with or the perception is that these kids can't learn. The teachers aren't teaching them. There's no expectation, right? Is that true? Well, I'm sure there's always one or two folks that make that thing true. So I'm not, oblivious. But think about the context of that. If I go into a school that I know is already low performing, is already, low socioeconomics, already has a high students with disability population, already has a high students the English as a second language, right, population. You already have these stigmas placed. And in doing that, then you treat the people in the building as if, oh, I got some medicine for you. I got a prescription for you. You just want me to do this and to do that. You cannot. You just cannot. You can't. But we as teachers, we got to tell our stories, And then my next thing and my last point is they talked about in this book about working with researchers. And there was a concept in the book that talked about sponsoring teachers. And it was, I interpreted it to mean having researchers to do more life history research, and you give teachers their voice, right? You give them the opportunity. You validate this. You put it out there as this is what's really going on. So the last quote that I have for you, it says, oh no, I just read that, didn't I? There we go. The idea that all groups have a right to speak for themselves in their own voice and have that voice accepted as authentic and legitimate. So how often do we listen to teachers or listen to ourselves, and we're complaining and we're frustrated and we're angry, and it appears that people are not listening to us. They're not understanding where we're coming from. And it goes back to having the language to explain in a way where people can understand. And this not only needs to go with the teachers and the researchers coming together. Maybe teachers should be researchers. This is where I come in, right? Because as a teacher, now I'm putting scholarship to the experiences that I'm having. And now it helps me to understand that, you know what, I'm not crazy. I know that this is not right. This is not benefiting our children. This is not helping our teachers to stay, right? So what if teachers were researchers? What if researchers empowered teacher voices? What if we were able to solidify this and add to the knowledge base, add to our own profession as teachers, add to the profession what works, what doesn't work, but add something that is within the context of history, within the context of political and social climate. What if that's what we did? I think it is very important that we tell our stories. We have to fight. As you know, there is a war, and I've said it, and I'm not the only person that said it. There is a war on public education. And the war is because part of the war is teachers have not voiced what really is going on. We may not have the vocabulary to explain what's happening. And who's taking the lead? The politicians are taking the lead. They're saying, oh, you're not doing this. Oh, you're not. You want this. Or businesses are making demands. We want outcomes. Well, I want outcomes too. But children are people. They're humans. Teachers are people and humans. Computers are whatever you put in, and then you expect to get something out. This is, we have to deal with people within the context of their environment. And I'm not saying the context of, oh, you're poor, oh, you have free lunch. No, I'm saying the political environment, the racial environment. So if we think about the president of the United States of America, Trump right now, right? And the Republican Party, because it's not all him. Somebody put him there. And then if we look at Betsy DeVos, okay, she's never been in a public school, but you're in charge of them. And you're steady coming up with ways to take money out of public schools. So you defund public schools, and in defunding, de-investing. See, D means take away, not, right? If you're taking away money and giving it to somebody else, how then can these schools be better? How can our students be better? How can we maintain tenure with teachers not leaving? How can we develop and grow new teachers to take up the mantle, right? So, I want us to really think about our story. What made you become a teacher? What in your life history, caused you to get to this point? So you came into teaching. Of course, we all did. We wanted to save all the kids and help them be better, right? But as we got in and we started seeing the political landscape, the financial landscape, the social landscape, and then historical comparisons like, oh, this looks like what happened back in this time, right? So we say that we're desegregated. We say that we're, free to go to whatever school, right? The law says there can't be black schools and white schools. However, we are now still segregated geographically. How did you segregate us? Housing. I just had to throw that out there. But this is examining our experiences not only through academia, not only through test scores, but also through community, how we're situated. That's the power. So I want to leave you with that. I really want us all to think about our stories on how we became teachers, our stories as we're teachers, and for those who have left, those stories on the reason why you left, whether you were pushed out, put out, non-renewed, right? And that again leads me to teacher displacement, my dissertation. I want to hear your story. You can definitely follow me everywhere now. Oh my goodness. I'm definitely glad you were here. I'm glad we had this time to talk. I hope that I was able to give you some new knowledge, and thoughts, and I hope that I was able to inspire you to keep going, whether you're doing it in the classroom, whether you're doing it in consulting or in the academy, however, but we still have to take care of our children and our community. So I'm glad you were here. Please share this podcast with your community of teachers, your scholars, activists. Please follow me. I love to hear from you. I am now everywhere. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Podomatic, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Leave your comments and suggestions. Until we meet again, peace, power, and progress.